to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. Hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves.
Let me make one thing real clear. This ain't about injunctions. This is about erasing the 14th Amendment with a smile. We thought the courts were supposed to be the last line of defense, the place where liberty stands tall even when presidents go rogue. But on Friday, in a 6-3 decision straight down party lines, the Supreme Court told us, nah, we good.
Birthright citizenship is not over. It's being left up to the states, basically. And the ruling that's
a major landmark decision allowing Trump to restrict birthright citizenship in some parts of the country. In January, Trump signed an executive order essentially stripping birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment from people who were born in the United States to two undocumented parents. Various organizations immediately filed federal lawsuits, and judges all over the country slapped injunctions basically stripping his ability to enforce it. Trump then immediately appealed the case all the way up to the Supreme Court, asking them to restrict federal judges' ability to stop him from enforcing these ridiculous executive orders. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court sided with him. Now his executive order will be allowed to go into effect in parts of the country where there weren't any federal injunctions. Now, it's important to remember that this decision did not address whether restricting birthright citizenship was constitutional or not. It only addressed whether a federal judge can block an executive order from essentially going into effect for the entire country rather than parts of it, to which the court said no. But it does allow Trump to redefine birthright citizenship in certain parts of the country for now.
Birthright citizenship is not over. It's being left up to the states, basically. And the ruling that the Supreme Court had is going to lead to much worse outcomes. But I want to explain it in personal terms because people just keep reiterating the legal terms and it's getting muddled. The courts are not allowed to block executive orders across the nation, which means if you disagree, you have to fight it individually. And if you're not personally involved in the suit and you are elsewhere, you have to follow the executive order. A good example of this is if Trump decides to drop an executive order that limits people's ability to vote, or takes your guns away, or limits the ability to have a right to marriage. You have to follow that executive order unless you are involved in a suit that you file or get involved in with a bunch of other people to file. That decision is on executive orders as a whole, which is very bad, but specifically the birthright citizenship has been put on stay for 30 days, meaning it will not be enacted until 30 days from now. So everyone who will be affected by this has 30 days to go to court or go to their district and have the state fight for them. As of recording this video, the Supreme Court has not voted on whether the executive order regarding birthright citizenship is unconstitutional or not. So the ruling was on executive orders as a whole. The birthright citizenship one has not been voted on whether it's unconstitutional or not, and there's no timeline for when or if they decide that it is or not. So as of right now, even though this ruling was on executive orders as a whole, the main important point that people are focusing on is birthright citizenship. And as of right now, it will go into effect in 30 days. And if you are in a state that is not going to try and block it, you are in trouble. This is a step towards authoritarianism. It is stripping our rights away little by little. We may not have ended birthright citizenship today, but it is arguably on its way. This is what Trump does in his business. Leave it up to the courts. Let's fight it in the courts. And while you're fighting, I'm going to keep moving this way. We can, and he just wants to keep these in litigation. Keep fighting them. That's fine. You guys can stay. But everyone else who's not involved in the suits or can't afford to be in these lawsuits, you have to follow. You have to follow the executive orders. Once there's less of you and we've dwindled this group down to a smaller demographic, then we'll just make something else. We'll make a new rule, a new executive order, a new Supreme Court ruling that then gets the rest of you out. That's how this works. That's the stripping little by little.
Challenging the Trump administration's executive order to limit birthright citizenship to the children of undocumented parents here in the States. What happened today was that the Supreme Court granted a partial stay in that case. What does that mean? It basically means that it limits legal protections while this case continues in the lower court. And by legal protections, I mean the nationwide injunction that was put in place while this case is being litigated. That nationwide injunction is so important because it protects us nationwide. It means that while this case is being litigated, the federal government cannot enforce this policy. Not just for the parties in the lawsuit, but nationwide, all of us. The Supreme Court essentially said, no, we're not going to allow that. This means that in 30 days, the Trump administration can go ahead and start beginning to enforce this policy wherever they see fit, while this case is still being decided. And so today's ruling was not about whether or not this executive order is constitutional. That'll be decided way, way later. The ruling today did not overturn birthright citizenship. And again, it does not say that this executive order is legal because that's still being debated in the court. Again, it does not apply to anyone yet. But most importantly, what this does do, it clears the way for our federal government to start enforcing this policy more broadly while this case is still being decided. Again, could some states enforce this if they choose to in 30 days? It's up in the air. What happens next? The case goes back to the lower courts where it will continue to be evaluated to see if the executive order is constitutional. SCOTUS could eventually revisit the case to decide if birthright citizenship can be legally restricted via executive action.
They let Trump sneak his foot in the door to cancel birthright citizenship. And they dressed it up in legal jargon about equity and injunctions. Oh, but don't get distracted. The real target was always your rights, especially if you was born with brown skin, immigrant parents, or ancestors who came here in chains rather than visas. For a second, it looked like the lower courts might hold the line, right? 3 federal judges had already slapped Trump's executive orders down with nationwide injunctions, telling him loud and clear, you can't just rewrite the Constitution because you feel like it. Immigrant groups were celebrating. 22 states stood up in court. Even the appellate courts said, let this play out. Then SCOTUS slid in like a repo man in the night. Instead of ruling on whether Trump's executive order was flat out unconstitutional, which it was, they sidestepped it and went for the technical foul. Universal injunctions go too far. God damn it. Basically, the court said that judges can't stop Trump's policies for everyone. Only the people who specifically sued. So now we're playing legal whack-a-mole across 50 states while Trump rushes to implement a policy that directly contradicts 150 years of law. So what's at stake, right? Everything. Let me break this down plain and simple. Trump's executive order says if your parents weren't here legally, or maybe they were here legally but temporarily, you don't deserve citizenship. Are you serious? The 14th Amendment that was passed after the Civil War to make sure that Black folks were considered full human beings says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens. It don't say except for immigrants. It don't say only if your parents had papers. It says all persons. A phrase so fucking inclusive. It slapped the face of Dred Scott and every slave master of the fucking Confederacy. So what Trump is really doing here is rewriting Reconstruction. The very laws meant to undo slavery. And the Supreme Court just handed him the pen. You thought Isengard was bad? You thought Voldemort was a problem? Justice Amy Coney Barrett, Trump's handpicked avatar, penned this majority opinion like it was a legal lullaby, with principles of equity, she says, while politely gutting the power of federal courts to stop executive tyranny. And while they didn't officially cancel birthright citizenship yet, make no mistake, they laid the legal groundwork to allow Trump to do it himself. In the dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, she tried to hold the line, calling out how this decision disregards the long history of protection for non-parties. But her voice is now a lonely alarm in a house full of arsonists. This ain't about immigration. This is about control. It's about telling people of color, especially Black, brown, or immigrant babies, that their existence is conditional. That if you ain't got the generational wealth, land deeds, or ancestors off the Mayflower, you're permanently under review. Today is birthright citizenship. Tomorrow is voting rights. Affirmative action, gone. Housing, gone. Education, you got it. Gone. When does it stop? And the MAGA cult, oh, they're going to keep smiling in your face, talking about this is what we voted for. This is what the founders wanted. Don't forget, y'all, the founders owned slaves. They're not playing. Trump told you on day one what he was coming for. And this court just gave him the green light to drive through your rights like a bulldozer in a graveyard. So don't wait on the Constitution to bleed before you speak up. Because if birthright citizenship can be reviewed, so can your freedom.
So on day one of Donald Trump's presidency, he issued an executive order. If you are born in the United States and one of your parents is not at least a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, you're not a U.S. citizen. 22 states filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump saying this is illegal. A federal judge agreed and issued a nationwide injunction saying this executive order can't go into effect. And Trump appealed, not whether his ban on birthright citizenship is legal or not. He appealed that a federal judge can't make this nationwide injunction while they're litigating this case out. And the Supreme Court decided with Donald Trump. So they haven't ended birthright citizenship. They didn't make a decision on that. What they have said is, if you are a child born in the United States in one of these 22 states that brought a lawsuit, that injunction continues. You will be considered a U.S. citizen. You will get your benefits as a U.S. citizen, whether it's your birth certificate, your social security number, Medicaid, food stamps, whatever you're entitled to. But if you're a child born in the United States, in any of these other 28 states that did not bring a lawsuit, the Republican states, in 30 days from now, you will not get any benefits. You will not get your birth certificate, presumably, nor a social security number, nor Medicaid, nor food stamps. You won't be considered a U.S. citizen, perhaps even deportable. Baby deportable, imagine. The Supreme Court gave 30 days.
Credit goes to the owner of the
If
field.
anybody is having any conversations around birthright citizenship or citizenship as a whole, if you do not know who this man is, you should be ashamed of yourself. Because it's as a result of Dred Scott that birthright citizenship can exist. Dred Scott was enslaved by a U.S. Army surgeon by the name of Dr. John Emerson. Emerson took Mr. Scott to an area which would be considered between Illinois and Wisconsin, which at the time, slavery was illegal. When Emerson died, Dred Scott tried to buy his and his wife's freedom from Emerson's widow, to which she refused. And this man, in the 1800s, sued her. This black man's case went to the Supreme Court in the 1800s. And one of the most infamous quotes that sets the precedence for how we are still treated in this country till this day as Black Americans was stated by Chief Justice Robert B. Taney, that Black people have no rights that a white man is bound to respect.
We have breaking news this Sunday morning that could make you and a lot of other Americans much richer. You see, last night, the Senate made progress on Trump's bill. It's about 970 pages long. However, I skimmed through most of it, so I'll let you know what's important. Last night, the Senate had what's called a procedural vote. Procedural vote is kind of like you're texting your homegirls and your friends like, hey, y'all trying to go to Cabo this weekend? And if they say yes, more than likely that conversation is going to move to a group chat. Well, that's what happened last night. The Senate said yes to going to Cabo or yes to this bill that Trump has introduced. Now, just because they said yes does not mean that tickets to Cabo were purchased yet. They still have to go through debating, like, should we leave on Friday? Should we leave on Saturday? Girl, I can't go on that day because somebody got to watch AJ and his daddy's tripping. That's what's happening right now. A lot of the debating about the details. And here's what's changed so far. No tax on tips for the first $25,000. Originally, it was the entire amount. Now you're limited to $25,000. No tax on overtime for the first $12,500. Originally, this was the full amount. Now it's limited. To qualify for the full amount on no tax on tips or no tax on overtime deduction, you must make less than $150,000. There's also a brand new investment account called a Trump account. And it's for parents to put money into their kids' account if they're age 17 and younger. Parents can put up to $5,000 per year. The government is also going to put $1,000 in for newborns that pop out anywhere between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. Your job or business can also contribute to this account by matching that $1,000 that the government is giving. They can also put an additional $2,500 in lieu of wages. Now, the highlights on this Trump account is that it can grow tax-free and your kid is eligible to take up to 50% out by the time they turn 18, and then the other 50% by the time they turn 25. It must be fully withdrawn by the time that they're age 31. And they can take the money out tax-free for things such as small business loans, starting a small business, college tuition, and purchasing a first-time home. Another change is that the child tax credit is going to increase to $2,200. Right now it's at $2,000, and it's set to go back down to $1,000. But with the passage of this bill, it stops it from going down to $1,000 and raises it to $2,200. We also have the 100% bonus depreciation for small business owners and real estate investors. There's a brand new Made in America tax write-off, which allows you to write off the interest on your car payments if it's new and it was made in the United States. With the passage of this bill, experts are saying for the average W-2 employee, they can see an additional $10,000 a year from their paychecks. Now, the next step in this process is to do a final vote on the bill. It's like asking your friends, hey, y'all, look, we done talked about all this stuff. Is we going to Cabo or not? For real, for real. Now, the Senate is looking to do that final vote tonight or possibly by Monday. And if they take the vote and it gets the green light, it then goes back to the House where they have to review it and vote on it. It's like your friends agreeing to the trip. You guys made all these changes. You agreed to the trip. Now it's time to go back and talk to your parents or your spouse. Your parents or spouse have already said that you can go. However, since you just recently made changes, you have to send it back to them, the House of Representatives, which is kind of like your parent or spouse, to get their okay. And if you get their okay, then the president signs the bill, it becomes law, and we go into Cabo, baby. My name is Duke, and I make taxes very easy to understand. Give me a follow to stay educated.
Starting tomorrow, June 20th, no immigrant will be able to send money to their countries of origin. If you do not have legal immigration status, you can't send a single dollar home. This isn't a warning, it's happening. Now the Remittance Control Act kicks in tomorrow morning, blocking all money transfers without valid U.S. documentation. Trump declared during his announcement, illegal immigrants have been draining $150 billion annually from our economy. That ends tomorrow. The numbers are staggering. 42 million immigrants send money overseas, supporting 800 million family members globally. Western Union, MoneyGram, Zelle, all blocked without a real ID or valid social security number. You're cut off completely. Banks must verify legal status before any transfer violators face $10,000 fines per transaction money. Transfer businesses risk losing their licenses. Families in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador are about to lose their only lifeline. Even supporters are calling this extreme. This isn't just policy, it's personal.
Juzi nimemwambia mambo ilikuwa inafanyika huko United Kingdom. Lakini sasa nataka ushare na mtu wako Amerika kwa sababu na nyinyi hamuna bahati. Na hii wacha nikwambie, ita affect kila mtu ambaye anapokeaga pesa kutoka Amerika. Kwa sababu Donald Trump ambaye ni president wa Amerika na chama yake ya Republic wanasema muna limit pesa mingi sana kutoka Amerika kuleta kwenu nchi yenu. Yaani muna limit pesa mingi kutoka Amerika kuja Kenya. Kulingana na ripoti ya CBK, last year mulituma Wakenya wale wako nje nchi walituma over 600 billion Kenya shillings, of which half of that money zilikuwa limited from Kenyans living in America. So Donald Trump anasema hiyo pesa mnatuma na hamuinvest America, ataanza kukata share yake. Na hapo anasema aje? Anasema kila pesa unatuma 5% mtakuwa mnampea. So out of 357 billion ile mlituma last year, 19 billion Donald Trump anazitaka. Furthermore to this, itakuwa na impact kubwa ikiwa wewe ni mtu wako America na uko na project huku Kenya. Inamaanisha the cost of that project itaenda juu. The same na wale wana support familia zao. Ile kitu mlikuwa mnapata ya support from your fellows from America, nayo itaenda chini, kwa sababu lazima atalipa hiyo 5%. So hii ndio mambo inafanyika huko Amerika. Share na rafiki yako mwenye ako Amerika, wacha ajue hii inafanyika, ndivyo ikiwa uko na ka project una run hapa Kenya na uko na pesa unaweza tuma kamalizike kabla hizi tax has just take effect, unaweza jisaidia before it is too late. Share with them, share with them, share there with them.
It's crazy when you realize you're no longer a broke teenager. You're now an adult living in poverty.
A bombshell just rocked the financial world. Trump's shocking move will trigger the largest cash transfer in history. I'm Steve Van Meter. As you're about to see, this could be the end of banks as we know it. The great monetary reset is here. Now, let's head over to Bloomberg, where we picked today's story up with the headline: a stablecoin regulation could shake up the U.S. financial system, and many people have been waiting for this because they believe that cryptocurrencies and stablecoins will change the face of the financial system. But even on a bigger level, as you're about to see, this could be the end of banks as we know it, as what's coming could be the biggest cash transfer in history, and for the banks, this is an absolute nightmare scenario. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has even a grander vision that stablecoins will strengthen the dollar's status as a dominant reserve currency in the world, a concept that's been called into question in recent months. And for those of you who don't know what stablecoins are, currently they're right now tied to the U.S. dollar, and meaning they barely fluctuate at all. Yes, there are minor fluctuations, but the idea behind them, they are stable. And what this presents is an alternative to what the existing banking system offers as a place to deposit money. Instead, we could see Americans using stable coins, and that could spread all over the world, making the United States a powerhouse behind crypto. Bessent and his team said they're also looking into how they can help the government finance its gaping deficits. Not all economists, though, are quite bullish, and there's the really big issue. It has nothing to do with economists. It has everything to do with financing massive deficits and stable coins. Now the answer, as Scott Bessent is telling us, this is absolutely shocking. You're going to see why this is going to transfer a massive amount of money out of the banking system. Right now, we look to banks to hold our money. In the future, that may not be the case. Instead, what you're going to find out is stable coins are really going to be a way for many people, not just here in the United States, but all over the world, to finance our debt. Enacting the bill now wending its way through Congress could further accelerate stablecoin adoption, moving this asset class more mainstream, this according to a JP Morgan Chase strategist. It would lend legitimacy to the asset class at a time when use cases for stablecoins are growing and evolving. And what we also are finding out when we go back and look at prior banking crises is that consumers, they want alternatives to the banking system because they don't trust it. And right now, stablecoins are an alternative, but for a lot of depositors, this isn't an option. But if all of a sudden we see the U.S. government get behind it, what you could see is a mass exodus, a bank run of large proportions, perhaps one bigger than we've ever seen in history, as people look to move their money out of the banks into something they believe is far more stable and reliable. I want to know from you, if this law goes through, are you moving your money out of the banks, or are you...
A new remittance tax from U.S. President Donald Trump could deal a fresh blow to the Philippine economy. Deutsche Bank warns that Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, which proposes a levy on money sent abroad, could cut Philippine remittances by 1.4%. The U.S. is our single largest source of remittance inflows, making up 41% of that total. A drop there could hit household spending, just as inflation ticks up and put more pressure on our current account. Still, the BSP is sticking to its forecast, expecting remittances to grow 2.8% this year.
Starting tomorrow, June 20th, no immigrant will be able to send money to their countries of origin. If you do not have legal immigration status, you can't send a single dollar home. This isn't a warning, it's happening. Now the Remittance Control Act kicks in tomorrow morning, blocking all money transfers without valid U.S. documentation. Trump declared during his announcement, illegal immigrants have been draining $150 billion annually from our economy. That ends tomorrow. The numbers are staggering. 42 million immigrants send money overseas, supporting 800 million family members globally. Western Union, MoneyGram, Zelle, all blocked without a real ID or valid social security number. You're cut off completely. Banks must verify legal status before any transfer violators face $10,000 fines per transaction money. Transfer businesses risk losing their licenses. Families in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador are about to lose their only lifeline. Even supporters are calling this extreme. This isn't just policy, it's personal.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm your lovely host Beryl, and thank you all for those who've been able to subscribe, repost, comment, and if you're new here, feel free for more bold and unapologetic stories. So you've watched the video compilation I just shared with you of exactly what's going on right now in the United States of America. Supreme Court may just end birthright citizenship, and actually the bill I believe has been passed. So yeah, it's something that is currently happening. So today the Supreme Court shook the nation with a landmark of 6-3 ruling that could actually reshape what it means to be American. So in a case tied to President Trump's executive order 14160 on birthright citizenship, the court decided to curb the power of federal judges, allowing challenges to nationwide injunctions. And now Americans from all walks of life are weighing in. Yeah, okay, you get the point. So let's unpack the decision first. So just this month, on June 27th, 2025, the court ruled that federal judges may no longer issue universal injunctions, that is, orders binding across the entire country, unless the case is certified as a class action. Instead, remedies are limited to the plaintiffs involved. So this procedural shift didn't determine whether birthright citizenship is constitutional. Rather, it effectively cleared the way for Trump's executive order, known as the Executive Order 14160, issued in January this year, to proceed in courts where legal challenges haven't yet filed. So Executive Order 14160, titled Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship, apparently, okay? So that's the title. Mandates that children born in the United States to undocumented immigrants or those here lawfully but temporarily would not be granted citizenship unless at least one parent is a US citizen or lawful permanent resident. Yes. So legal battles began almost immediately, whereby federal judges in Washington State, Massachusetts, and Maryland issued injunctions blocking enforcement, but with nationwide injunctions now restricted, that protection may no longer hold everywhere. So across the political spectrum, reactions have actually been poured in. So Senator Chris Murphy warned that the procedural ruling could erode democratic norms, creating inconsistent citizenship policies and legal chaos. That is a statement from Chris Murphy, the senator. And the other one is Senator Marlin. He said that US-born children of undocumented parents should be deported alongside their parents, reinforcing the more hardline interpretations of the executive order. So advocates actually saying the ruling leaves immigrant families in limbo. Groups like CASA, Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project, and a coalition of states have refiled lawsuits as class actions to restore nationwide protection. Yeah, so those who are actually illegal immigrants are kind of in a limbo, in a space where they don't know what is going to happen. So what happens next? Lower courts now decide whether to apply localized injunction or expand protections through class actions. Another thing that might happen is the executive order, set to take effect 30 days post-ruling, could begin applying in regions without legal blocks, potentially impacting tens of thousands of infants annually. Another thing that might happen is opponents vow to appeal further and actually may seek a full constitutional ruling from the Supreme Court in the fall session. So that's the full picture here. A procedural ruling with far-reaching consequences that is igniting fierce debates over American identity. The 14th Amendment and the balance of power. What do you think? Should birthright citizenship remain untouched? Or is this court action justified? Let me know in the comment section, and if you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and put on notifications for more updates. I'm your lovely host, Beryl. Have yourself a wonderful time. Bye.